recording, so you will be provided with questions and you will answer these on the way through, and that will help you with your note taking. We are looking at a new area, and it's called Disciples, Martyrs and Witnesses of the Faith, and it's really looking at the very beginning of the church and martyrs and saints from the very beginning of the church. But to start off with, we will go back to Pentecost. Now, you've talked about Pentecost, and you're probably thinking in your head, no, we haven't talked about Pentecost, but we have, because I've got proof. We did this earlier in the year. So we've finished off with the monasteries. We're going to look at the beginning history of the church and the witnesses to the beginning of the church, to the Christianity, and you're to answer those questions that are provided while watching this video. I'm doing it this way because we've lost a little bit of time, and I'm trying to catch up and make sure that you've got the important information for when you start your assessment. Okay, so the beginning of the Christianity. I'll reduce that. Get rid of this. The beginning of Christianity is here. You've all completed this. Now I'm going to make this a bit larger. If I can. Oh, maybe I can't. Maybe I can. Yes, I can. Look at this. Remember this? This is the Passover, when they had the meal before Jesus died. Then he was crucified. Then he died and he was buried for a certain number of days. 50 in total, so probably for 10 days. He was, the 10 days between the time he was crucified, the Passover, was buried in, not that we often bury people underground, or in that was the original way, but back in Jesus' time, they put them in a cave and pushed a rock in front of it. So after 10 days, he rose from the dead. He didn't rise all the way up to heaven. He rose from the dead, and within this period of time, he was helping the apostles come to terms with the fact of his loss and helping them with the strength to go on and spread his word. Okay, so Passover, eating the meal. I'll make this a bit bigger, smaller again. So we've got the Passover, which is also celebrating a Jewish holiday. Crucified, buried for 10 days, approximately 10 days, he resurrected. So here it says resurrection of Jesus, or resurrection of Christ. It's a Christian belief that after being put to death, he rose again from the dead. He didn't go all the way to heaven. He hung around for 40 days, showing the apostles. There's a famous here, Road to Emmaus, which I'm going to hand you out. Doubting Thomas, I'm also going to hand you out. You can read that and answer a few questions there. This down here is a picture of Doubting Thomas. Whenever anyone there's actually an expression, Doubting Thomas. Doubting Thomas is something we give to someone who often disbelieves something that's right in front of them, is in front of their eyes. So Doubting Thomas, that's someone who doubts absolutely everything. Well, that comes from one of the apostles being Thomas, and Jesus coming in to see them while they were hiding away, and Thomas asked for proof, and he actually put his hands inside of Jesus' wounds. So that's that one. That's just reassuring the apostles. So here, after 40 days, 50 in total, he ascends into heaven, and here you can see he ascends into heaven. This is often the picture that is portrayed to people in white, and we don't see or hear from Jesus in this form again. This is the last time that the apostles, because he is asking them to go out and be their ambassador. So he's ascended to heaven. There's a further 10 days, and the apostles still are not sure. And then on the day, then there is the Pentecost. Here is the Pentecost, and this is the day when the Holy Spirit comes down, gives them strength, and they're supposedly able to speak in tongues, meaning all different people from all different parts of the world were able to understand what they were saying in their own language. Okay, so just remember, you might need to refer back to that. That is in your books. Okay, so let's go to this particular book. Jesus was crucified here, and Antioch is where Pentecost occurred. As I said, Pentecost is the day that Christianity began. All right. So what happened to the first Christians after Jesus had died? They were all terrified, absolutely terrified. All of his followers, he promised them the kingdom of heaven. They were expecting, I think they were expecting peace within Jerusalem. They probably expected the Romans to leave. They expected that they would be able to have, their land would be abundant. But Jesus was crucified. What happened to him? He went. Nothing. They were just waiting there, and asking what's going to happen next. So the first Christians struggled to understand all the things they'd witnessed. They were frightened and unsure what to do. They'd followed their master of Jesus. They'd seen him perform miracles. They expected him to establish the mighty kingdom, but they were hugely disappointed when he was seized and put to death. But then, later, he astonished them by rising from the dead, visiting them regularly for a brief period before his ascension to heaven, and he promised them that he would be with them always through the Holy Spirit. Even though he was going to heaven, the Holy Spirit would come and visit them. So, he's risen to heaven, and then 10 days later, we have Pentecost, the birth of the church. Despite all their concerns, I might make this larger again, and fears, the first Christians promised Jesus that he would not abandon them, even though they were terrified. The transformation from the first Christians into people filled with faith and courage is told at the story of the Pentecost. The apostles, led by Peter, began to proclaim the message of Jesus to people from every nation who are gathered in Jerusalem for the Passover. And the number of disciples began to increase. This is what Peter said to the crowd at Pentecost. God raised this man, Jesus, to life, and all of us are witnesses to that. Now raised to the heights by God's right hand, he has received the Father, the Holy Spirit, who was promised, and what you see and hear is the outpouring of that Spirit. So Jesus is not here, but he has sent the Holy Spirit. And this is in the Acts, the 2nd, 32, 33. This is in the Bible. The message of Pentecost was the message of resurrection. The apostles, they were empowered by the Holy Spirit, who gave them strength, and led by Peter, they were determined to share the story. They were determined to share the story of Jesus and the fact that he had risen. Pentecost is 7 weeks after the first Easter and is described as the birthday of the church. Pentecost is also the feast of the Holy Trinity because the God, Jesus, and the Holy Trinity, that's the Holy Spirit, they're seen as the one person, the one God. So God gave us his Son, but that's also part of him, and Jesus gave us the Holy Spirit, which is also a part of him, which gives us strength. Right, what is the Holy Spirit? To think about the Holy Spirit is fruits and gifts. But I think I'll stop the tutorial here because I think it might be time for you to answer the questions that I provided for you.